Hello, everyone, and good afternoon or good morning if you're based somewhere else in the world rather than Copenhagen, to our Green Key webinar today about the updated Green Key criteria and processes. I'm gonna give it 1 minute so that some more participants can join. I can see that the number is still growing, and then we will get started right away. A little bit about a clarification about logistics. This webinar is being recorded. So, I mean, it's a webinar anyway, so none of you is seen. So GDPR-wise, we're safe here, but this is just for your information. There is also going to be the opportunity for you later to ask some questions. You are welcome to send them in the Q&A section of this webinar, and we will make sure to leave a bit of time at the end to answer all of your questions. I want to send a warm welcome to all of you from my side. My name is Claudia Bogensberger. I work for the Green Key International head office as a tourism programs manager, and I'm here with my dear colleague Martina, who is also working here at the head office in Copenhagen. And without further ado, I'm gonna get started now. I gave it the 1 minute that I wanted. And yes, today's webinar, we are going to talk about the updated revised Green Key criteria and certification process. So if that's not the topic you wanted, then maybe you're in the wrong webinar, but this is the plan for today. So, in general, before I get started with the main topic of today, I want to explain you a little bit about Green Key and who we are, for those of you who might not know. So, Green Key, we are the leading international certification program for tourism establishments. That means that right now we have more than 9,000 of certified establishments in more than 90 countries around the world. Our biggest category of establishments is hotels and hostels. That means that we have the most certified establishments in that category. But most people don't know, or most organizations don't know, that we actually also certify establishments in 5 other categories, such as campsites and holiday parks, small accommodations, conference centers, restaurants, and attractions. Attractions, for example, includes museums or theme parks. Um, the entity behind Green Key is the Foundation for Environmental Education, in short FEE. So you might be in the process of maybe applying for Green Key. There is, of course, a levy involved in our certificate. So you will receive the invoice from FEE, the Foundation for Environmental Education. So just for you to know that it's not a random company, it's our umbrella organization. FEE is a global nonprofit and non-governmental organization. We are a charity registered in the UK, and our head office is based here in Copenhagen. Our vision is to promote sustainable development through environmental education, and we do that with the help of our 6 programs. 2 of the programs that you can see here on the slide are in the tourism sector. So Green Key, of course, we're going to talk about extensively today. Another program in the tourism sector is Blue Flag, which is a sustainable award for environmental friendly boats, marinas, and especially beaches. So there's a lot of blue flag beaches that you will find around the world. Then we have 4 programs in the educational sector. EcoSchool is a network of about 40,000 schools around the world, so one of the biggest networks in that way. And EcoSchools is set up based on a 6-step model of integrating sustainability into the curriculum and to the identity of a school. So we have an equivalent for university and higher education, which is EcoCampus. And LEAF is our program learning about forests and ecosystems, which focuses on making classroom, using nature as a classroom. And finally, Young Reporters for the Environment is a leadership program for youth, where we encourage them to speak up for the environment. So we organize journalistic competitions where youth can participate in. So that is really who we are and the entity behind Green Key. Green Key as a whole, we have, of course, the head office here in Copenhagen, but our work and why we are successful as a program is because of our work of the national operators, the Green Key national operators, which are currently in around 55 countries. So you can see, depending on the country that your establishment is based on, whether you will be working with a national operator in that specific country. My colleague Martina will also drop the link to our website where you can find the list of national operators. What does that mean for you? If you're based in any of the countries with a national operator, those national operators are the ones that are supporting you in your application process to receive Green Key. And now, for those of you that were really attentive to what I'm saying, you might realize that I talked about the fact that Green Key is present in more than 90 countries, but we have about 55 national operators. The reason why this is possible is because Green Key International also works as a national operator. So for all the countries where we don't have an office yet, it's actually us from Green Key International that will be taking care of your application. And our Green Key establishments are also spread around the world. It's the most dots, which are establishments you will find in Europe, simply because our program has been founded in Denmark by the Danish Hotel and Restaurant Association. So, of course, it was first growing a lot in Europe. And then Mexico was one of the first countries to join. So, this is why there's also a lot of little dots in Mexico. And in general, we see a lot of development in the rest of the world right now. For example, in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. And while like you might be an establishment that is right now thinking about whether it makes sense for you to join a certification program, or maybe you are an establishment that is already in the process, or you are in the process of recertifying. If you're one of the ones that is still not sure, why should I join a certification program? The reality is that the modern traveler, more and more studies show that like the modern traveler is increasingly conscious of their environmental and social footprint. So it becomes more and more important for travelers today to travel sustainably, to stay in accommodation that actually have a proven record of their sustainability efforts. And also travelers want to make sure that they leave a positive impact behind rather than a negative impact when they travel to a destination. But why, based on that, why would you join a certification program? Because of a lot of unsubstantiated sustainability claims out there, sustainability is generally a word that has potentially been quite overused in the last years, and having a third-party entity confirming that your sustainability efforts and operational aspects have actually been checked gives you more credibility in what you're saying. And Green Key is set up in a way that we have a certain amount of imperatives, so mandatory criteria, and a certain amount of guideline criteria. So our program in general, the way it's set up, the idea is that it provokes or it encourages for continuous improvement. Rather than it being a checkbox exercise that you do once, you will be required to conform with more and more of our guideline criteria over the years. Whilst the imperative criteria are those that no matter which year in certification you are in, you will need to conform with. Then, in general, we are aligned with, we are a global program, or in general, certification programs are operating globally while allowing for local implementation. That is very much the case with our national operators. For us and our program, it's also really important that different stakeholders are involved in the sustainability efforts, because the impact that you can have is of course bigger the more different the more groups are involved in this in this process. So that is why our criteria are set up in a way that they involve, for example, staff, suppliers, but also your customers, to ensure that there is some awareness raising in within these groups. Then, not so important aspect as a business, of course, is that saving resources such as energy, water, and waste will, of course, also save you costs. And that is something that at the beginning of a process is often overlooked because, of course, it seems like there's a lot of costs involved. Getting a certification, this very much depends how far you are. Sometimes there are investment needed, for example, for water saving devices, but our establishments actually gave us some feedback. One of them came back to us that they invested in water saving devices for the whole establishment, which was paid off within a year. So after that, they were saving a lot on water costs. And then finally, while we have more than 9,000 certified establishments around the world, and in general, there's probably around 25,000 properties in the world that are certified with different certification schemes, that still means that there is a lot of room for certification. There is many more tourism establishments out there, which also means for you that it still gives you some market differentiation in comparison to maybe other properties in your area or in your classification. And then why Green Key specifically? We are working through together with major OTAs such as Booking.com. So by receiving the Green Key, you will also be shown a certified establishment on Booking.com. We are operating with a hopefully inclusive cost model. We are a non-profit organization, which allows us to have a pricing approach that hopefully allows different tourism establishments of different sizes to join our program. We are a program that has been developed by the tourism and hospitality industry for the tourism and hospitality industry. So we are very much focusing on having practical criteria that are implementable, and also our processes and tools are set up in that way. And finally, and very important as well, we are an international program, so we operate around the world. So you will have an international network, but at the same time, and also recognition internationally, at the same time, we have national operators that can provide guidance in the local language and adapt it to the national context. And also in our head office, we have different staff members with different languages, which means that even for the ones where we as are your national operators, there is a set of languages that we can offer. And then now I'm coming to like the main parts of today's webinar, which is the update on the revised criteria and processes. So first about the criteria. In general, a criteria revision process is something that we do every 5 years because of the simple reason that things change. We're living in a rapidly changing world, and also the tourism industry, of course, is changing, and also the topic of sustainability. When we look back of when the concept of sustainability was mentioned the first time by the UN, if we think about that, back then, for example, social sustainability was not included or was not seen as a major aspect of sustainability, whereas today we understand that social sustainability is equally important to talk about a holistic approach or a holistic sustainable business. And so, of course, that's just one example. But in general, there is a lot of changes happening. And so that is why every 5 years we look at every single one of our criteria. And also we actually take every single word and look is there additional clarification, for example, needed? Does the criterion still make sense as it is today? Does it have a significant impact in terms of sustainability, which is, of course, something that we want to achieve? And then we go through this process, as you can see here on this slide, we go through the process of reviewing our criteria. We start by reviewing all the scope and the definitions. So what establishments, what type of establishments are included with our certification, and we then start working on the criteria. We also give the possibility to our network to suggest new criteria if, for example, there is the perspective that we are missing criteria in specific areas. The network, first the internal network, is then also able to give their input through a hearing phase. So first an internal hearing phase and then an external hearing phase where anyone that is interested, no matter their position or knowledge about the industry, can actually give comments and feedback to our revised criteria. By following this process, we're also following an ISO standard, which is important for our program as well. And as part of this criteria revision process, we had 6 working parties based on thematic clusters. The working parties contained our Green Key national operators, so approximately 40 of them from around the world, because of course the situation is different depending on the country or region. And these working parties were also based on thematic clusters. So, for example, we had a working party on energy and carbon, and then we had a working party on biodiversity, one on water, waste management, and so forth. In total, we consulted around 70 organizations in the process, representing more than 100 experts, which included hotel groups, but also individual hotels, product and technical solution providers, NGOs, auditors, consultants, and also public authorities. We then ended up at 4 core documents, which are, of course, the updated Green Key Criteria Catalog. My colleague Martina is going to drop some links in the chat so you can see them right away on our website. The establishment category definition, so this is what I was talking about. If you are, for example, a small accommodation depending on the number of rooms and beds, or if you're a hotel and hostel, and this is what you will find in this document as well. We also created a scope document, so where it is defined what type of activities and facilities are included in the Green Key certification. For example, we do not certify cruise ships or golf courses or ski lifts, just to give you some examples, and that's what you will find in the scope document. We also worked on a glossary, of course, to give you information about the definitions and terminologies used in the Green Key Criteria Catalog. And finally, for those of you who are maybe re-applicants, we also created a comparison between the previous criteria and the new criteria. Of course, part of our tools and support is always the contact with Green Key. As part of the new processes that we also worked on, there's a mandatory first step for you as a Green Key establishment applying for our new criteria, which is a pre-screening form. So this is a form where the eligibility of your property for Green Key is determined. So there's several questions will be asked about the location of your property, whether or not you're open during the time of the audit, and so forth. It also determines the exact category, and it's something that will be useful for you, but also for our team. Something else that has changed in our catalog is that while previously we had 13 Green Key category, now we have actually 7 main categories with several subcategories in the catalog. The reason for that is that we wanted to create even more clarity, and it should be even clearer and easier for you to understand where do I find what type of criteria. The catalog is also ordered, the criteria are ordered in a way that all the imperatives, so mandatory criteria, are first in the catalog, in within the section, of course, and then the guideline criteria are afterwards. We also like one of the main like changes that you will see, which is mainly relevant for those of you that are um, um, in the recertification process, because for you, of course, it's a change. For those that are just starting and are maybe a new applicant, it will be your reality from the beginning. But so we basically changed from a 1 year certification period to a 2 year certification period, which means that our percentage requirements for guideline criteria have in reality not changed a lot in terms of percentage, but the appearance has changed. So in general, in the past, if you were a first-time applicant, and that is still the case today, applying for Green Key, you need to conform with 100% of imperative criteria and 0% of guideline criteria. So that's really the first year of the application, because we understand you need to focus on your imperative criteria and having those in place first. The year after, you still need to conform with 100% of imperative criteria and an additional 10% of guideline criteria. That is in the next certification period. So in the past, we had a 1 year cycle. So every year you needed to conform with 5% more of guideline criteria. In the new reality, we have a 2 year cycle. So every 2 years, you need to conform with 10% of guideline criteria. Now you might understand why I said that it didn't really change. The only thing that mainly changed was that we switched to a 2 year certification cycle. We also try to harmonize the structure of our criteria and explanatory notes. So you will now find a differentiation between first section about the relevance of the criterion. So why is this important in terms of sustainability? And then the expectations for implementation. What are you required to do in practice in your property? And finally, the audit evidence section, which specifies how you reach conformity and how it is assessed and verified during the audit. And then in the main international catalog, you will also find sometimes for the criteria little info notes on the left side that we have added here in a green circle. This is the information that for that specific criterion, there is a national adaptation. For your information, our national operators can make our criteria stricter. They cannot make them less strict, but they can, because in some countries there might be already a lot given by legislation, so they have the possibility to make a criterion stricter. And this you can find just like it is shown here in the criteria catalog. What are the main changes in terms of the criteria? First, I want to explain you the file, the comparison document. Martina has or will also drop it in the chat. So in the file, you will see that it's divided into minor changes, moderate changes, and major ones. Minor changes are really if we did wording improvements, changes to the explanatory notes, or maybe small changes in the audit process. Moderate changes are those where we have slightly strengthened the requirement, where national adaptation has been added, or where the audit process, like a little bit more moderate changes to the audit process. And finally, major changes are those where we added a new requirement, where we removed a requirement, or where, for example, we changed the category. So a criterion that was previously guideline is now imperative. Other changes to the criteria, we have merged some criteria that had a similar focus to ensure that the impact is substantial. We have removed some criteria where it was assessed during the process that the impact of the criterion is limited. We have introduced some new criteria, and we increased our focus on social sustainability, animal welfare, and biodiversity. That was it from the criteria section. I now have a few slides more for the audit process section, and then I'm gonna make sure that there is enough time as well for you to ask your questions. So you might be asking yourself, why all these changes? I explained to you in the criteria part that is something that happens every 5 years. So it's quite normal that every 5 years we update our criteria. For the process, we also went through quite some major changes. And the reason for that is that we wanted to make sure to strengthen our credibility even further and align with the new EU regulations, legislation on sustainability labels. For example, the EMCO directive, so the Empowering Consumer Directive, which focuses on protecting consumers against greenwashing claims. And what is changing exactly? In the past, we always, as a program, had third-party audits. So that anyways, there is us, Green Key, as the scheme, and then there is someone auditing your property and someone else, so third party, is deciding whether you can be certified. This was the case in the past, but in the past it could have been done, the audit could have been done by the national operator and the decision then by the national jury, or the audit could have been done by an independent auditor and again the decision as well by the auditor. Now, in the new reality, no matter where, there is a united process where an independent auditor visits your establishment and an independent certification body, so a fourth entity that we're adding, makes the final decision. What does it mean for you? There's even more independent and transparent certification. We have a stronger international recognition, but of course, the same Green Key quality. And what also stays the same for you is your contact with us at Green Key, and of course, your commitment to sustainability. Our goal through this process was really to make Green Key even more credible, reliable, and recognized worldwide so that hopefully the numbers can keep growing as they have in the past years. So in detail, there is 4 entities involved in the process. It's of course you as the applicant establishment. It's us, Green Key, as the scheme owner. We are the ones developing and administrating the Green Key program. And we are also the ones providing you with general support during the process. There is the auditor, which is the one that checks the conformity during the on-site audit. And then there's the certification body, which is the one that gives the final decision whether you can be certified based on the audit report. They're also the ones that deal with complaints and appeals in case, for example, you disagree with the decision that has been made. There are 4 main steps of the certification process that I'm going to go through one by one now. The first one is the pre-screening and the application phase. I already mentioned this before. So what is done is that the eligibility of your establishment for Green Key is assessed by looking at the location of your establishment, who is going to be your national operator or the appropriate contact within Green Key, what are the applicable categories. For example, are you a hotel with a restaurant or a museum with a restaurant or any other category that we certify. We also look at risks that could be associated with the audit, for example, external risks, and if your establishment is, of course, open. If, for example, more than 50% of your property are closed for renovation, then you cannot start the certification process at this point of time. But of course, once less than 50% are closed, you can get started with the process. As part of the pre-screening and application phase, what will happen is that Green Key will send information to you as the applicant establishment regarding the criteria, the process, the application form, the certification agreement, the costs, and any support material. We will then receive the files from you, so the documents as part of your application, and you are asked to sign the certification agreement and to pay the Green Key levy. And finally, our team looks then in all your documents and determines whether all of them are there. So a completeness check is done, and that will then, as a next step, be shared with the auditor and then afterwards with the certification body. After that, the on-site certification audit takes place. The certification body is the one that organizes this audit. By taking into consideration the competence, availability, costs, and distance of the auditor. So distance, we mean between the auditor's location and the establishment location. The certification body will also make sure that there is the possibility, or like in case there's the possibility for pooling, the certification body will make sure to also pool audits to save on time and costs for you as a property, especially the travel expenses. The assigned auditor will then contact you to organize the time for the on-site audit, and both the auditor and establishment will, so you will receive the application material again, and you will be paying the auditor costs through the certification body directly. During the on-site certification audit, what's happening is that there will be an opening meeting with the auditor, a document verification, which can also be checked by the auditor beforehand. So it depends on the way of operating of the auditor. Often they look at it beforehand and then double check during the audit if there's any questions open. Then a visual inspection of your property will be done. Potential interviews will be conducted. For example, for some criteria, your staff needs to be aware of your sustainability procedures. So this is something that the auditor could ask then to those staff members or to specific staff members. And then finally, there is a closing meeting, after which the auditor prepares a report in our standard online format. In case everything works well and the audit shows that you are fully conform with the Green Key criteria, the report is sent to the certification body and they make the final decision. In case there's 1 to 5 non-conformities with our imperative criteria, you have the time to rectify those non-conformities, so make sure that like they are in place and send proof of that rectification. That could be in the form of videos, documents, supplier information, and so forth. And after which the auditor collects that information and sends the final report to the certification body for review and decision. And lastly, if there's more than 5 non-conformities, you also need to, of course, rectify those, send proof, and a follow-up audit is organized. After the follow-up audit, and if everything goes well, again, the certification body receives the information for final review and decision. And then hopefully the outcome says that you can be certified, but of course it cannot always be the case, which is why I showed the different free options in case of non-conformities. But in the end, there is yes or no to certification. Once, let's assume you are certified now and the answer is yes, Green Key will then share the final decision together with your certificate, a copy of the audit report, as well as the certification agreement, the audit like access to the audit satisfaction survey, additional information about requirements that you need to make sure to align with during the certification period. I'm going to talk about it in the next slides. Information about suspension. So when could it be that your certificate is suspended? And information about complaints and appeals. Finally, as I explained, the certification period is now 2 years, but in between those 2 years, after 8 to 14 months, you will receive the information that you need to submit a few selected documents for specific criteria as part of the surveillance activities. So those are activities sort of like off-site audits, but of a few selected criteria that you need to go through during the certification period. You also, the Green Key levy is annual, so as part of this activity, you also need to pay the annual levy. Green Key then collects the material and the certification body evaluates and decides whether you can continue having your certification. So in the surveillance activities, there's no auditor involved, so there's also no audit costs involved. And then finally, if it's full conformity, you just keep your certification. If there's non-conformity, the certification is suspended until you rectify those non-conformities. And then finally, the finance part of all is in general, you will receive 2 invoices, one for the Green Key levy, which is an annual levy, and then one for the certification body fee, which is also an annual levy, and it includes the auditor fee, the travel expenses, and the certification body fee. And that is it from my side for explanations. But I looked at the time, and the good thing is that we still have a lot of time for your questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And please, Martina, I don't know if we already have some questions. Otherwise, you can try.
Yes, yes, you can submit your questions with the Q&A tools, but we already have 5 questions. And the first one, are the criteria approved by the NAC? You are muted.
Apologies, I
Okay.
just
Yeah.
muted myself. So the criteria have been looked at by DANAC, yes, and we are in the process of approving our scheme, and we are in the final stages of that process. So DANAC, we're waiting for their final confirmation.
Thank you. Do you advise to join during the fourth quarter or better to join on the first quarter of 2027?
So what you can do is that you can start the process in the fourth quarter because, like in general, it takes a few months to understand what documents exactly are needed, and so it is a good idea to like give yourself some time, depending on when you want to be certified as well. But in general, you can start in the fourth quarter with the process, and then potentially in the first quarter you are already certified. But if you have some timing issues, you can also start in the first quarter of 2027. Again, it takes a little bit of time to actually apply, to upload the documents. So it's definitely an option to start the process in the fourth quarter of 2026.
Thank you. Um, we have a question from Rita. For the third year, will the renewal involve an on-site audit or a document-based review as in the past?
So if you're like now due for recertification in the fourth quarter of 26, and you are in the third year, normally, as you're correct, you would have an offsite audit. So then in the new reality, because we're entering a transition period, you will actually have surveillance activities. So that's what I explained in the end. It's a reduced number of selected criteria, and as you will only have surveillance activities, your certificate will only be valid for 1 year, and only after that year you will have an on-site audit with the new criteria, and then be certified for 2 years.
Okay, perfect. And does the Green Key provide support and guidance to host an education and awareness event for local hotel leaders in a country with no national operators?
Um, I hope I understand the question correctly. I'm not sure what you mean exactly, but in general, we are like it's part of us as an institution focusing on environmental education. We are organizing, yes, and also our national operators, we are organizing webinars. We have a toolbox with resources available. So I don't know if the national operator can host an event wherever needed, but it's something that, as a suggestion, we can certainly take on. Often we host like online events like this one. Our national operators also, for example, host events for their different applying establishments focusing on a specific topic. So, for example, there's an event focusing on only water management or only energy management. So, there's definitely a lot of like support and education that we as Green Key provide. And I generally recommend you to contact your national operator because I'm sure there's already a lot of material and webinars and possibilities available in your country.
Yes, I would add also that as a Green Key International or Green Key certified establishments in general, you get access to 3 different courses in Free Academy. So if you have a Green Key ID, you can certainly ask us to have 3 different courses for that.
And as an explanation, Fee Academy is an online learning platform from our organization. You can not only find courses about Green Key, you can also find courses about, for example, the SDGs and from our other programs. It's a free platform. You just need a profile. You can sign up for some courses. There's enrollment keys necessary, like Martina explained, but you will, as a Green Key establishment, get access to the Green Key courses. And in general, you will also get access to the Green Key Toolbox, which is a collection of material and resources.
Moving on to the next one, how about this if next year we have the second audit? Is the process following the new standards?
Yes, after our new criteria take effect on the 1st of October, so after that date, all establishments will follow the new processes and new criteria.
For hotels that are currently certified and applying for renewal, will access to the platform remain available so we can review our previous record and historical submissions?
So this depends a little bit on the platform you are using because I'm not aware which country you're based in. So we have different platforms in different countries. For example, for the platform that we use for Grink International and also approximately 15 other national operators, yes, the historical data will be available also after the new process takes effect. For the other platforms, I again would recommend you to talk to your national operator.
Perfect. Anna, I'm based in Portugal and would like to know what the expected timeline is for the next application rounds.
Again, my clear recommendation to directly talk to Maria, who is your national operator. Martina has dropped the link in the chat to the page where you can find the contact information, and they will be very capable and happy to give you further information and potentially also have a meeting with you where you can ask any other questions you have.
Yes, I'm just putting again the national operators page here.
Thank you.
Okay. When will the platform be available to submit the new criteria?
Again, this depends. It doesn't really depend. In general, the all national operators need to have a platform in place to submit the or to apply with the new criteria on the 1st of October. So that's definitely the deadline. Some national operators also have a transition platform. Like for example, at Green International, we have a temporary platform that you can already use now to start the process with the new criteria, and then you can continue in our main platform. So it also depends a little bit where you're based in, but by the 1st of October, we all have the platform updated with the new criteria.
Perfect. If non-conformities are identified, will the hotels have the time to implement corrective actions before the final decisions?
This depends a little bit on how many nonconformities. That was one of my last slides. So if you have like 1 to 5 nonconformities, yes, there will be the possibility to work on rectifying those nonconformities, resubmit some documents to the auditor, and the auditor will then integrate that in the report to send to the certification body for a final decision. If it's more than 5 nonconformities, what will happen is that you also have the possibility to rectify your non-conformities. The difference is that another on-site audit must happen. They have to come to site, except if the certification body says it's not necessary. But in general, the auditor will come to your property again and check if the non-conformities have been rectified, and then the final decision is made. So in general, yes, you will have the time to rectify non-conformities before final decision.
Yeah. Perfect, thank you. We were first certified in October 2025 based on our previous criteria. Will there be a full assessment this year, year two, based on the new criteria, or as mentioned, only certain evaluation documents will be requested?
In the second year, you are due for an on-site audit, so a full assessment will be happening. The example I gave before was for a property that was due for an off-site audit, which is the third year. So you will be assessed following the new criteria based on an on-site audit.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. If an hotel is undergoing renovation, how does that impact the certification process?
This depends on how much of your property is under a renovation. If it's more than 50%, then you cannot, then you're not eligible for the green key at this moment. If it's less than 50%, you can start the application process.
Perfect, thank you. Which eco-label certification are accepted to meet the green key requirements for cleaning chemicals?
We have a list. It's a living document that whenever new, because there is many eco labels out around the world, we have a process of screening eco labels based on the defined criteria that we set for the different eco labels. And this list is available as part of the Green Key Toolbox. So once you are part of the Green Key network and the certified an establishment that starts the certification process, you will also get access to that list.
Perfect. Can the topics of sustainability can be incorporated in the town hall meeting instead of separate meeting? Um, Jude Leo, can you explain a little bit further what was your question here? Moving forward, maybe with the other one, is the
Yes,
new
not sure
audit,
really what's the question about.
yeah, is the new audit process will two times visit by independent auditor and CB or just one time visit? They are asking if also the audit independent will be
Visiting? No.
yeah.
The auditor is the one that comes on site and visits, and the certification body takes the decision based on that report that is submitted through the on-site audit.
Perfect. The comparison Excel file appears to be protected and cannot be filtered. Can you please share an unprotected version to make navigation and review easier? Thank you.
The file is protected for a reason because what is required is that the order of the criteria stays the same. And otherwise, with the way it is set up, it would be quite confusing because with the filtering, everything comes like everything gets a little bit messy. So to actually support the establishments, we did the protection of the file. So we would like to keep it that way so that the order of the criteria also stays that way.
Okay. If a previously certified establishment undergoes a full renovation, so completely closed down for the renovation for a certain period of time, maybe just a few months or maybe up to a year, will it lose the certification and start from year one, or is it just a temporary postpone?
It depends a little bit what else changes. If, for example, on top of like the whole property, like the whole establishment being renovated and all the operations changing, also the management changes and all your staff changes, then yes, you will start over because in reality it's a new establishment and we don't certify the name, we certify the management process, the operations, and so forth.
Thank you. Giulio has further information about his question, but it's in staff involvement section 2.3. Staff member must receive yearly training on environmental and other sustainability issues.
I still don't understand why
No.
we're talking about a town hall meeting. I don't know if you mean your general meetings in your establishment, but it is described in the criterion how many meetings are needed in order to actually conform with the criterion. So there's additional training also needed for specific staff members. So if that is written in the criterion that it must be a separate meeting, then a separate meeting is necessary.
Yes, if you feel like that we answered your questions, then good. Then otherwise, I'm dropping our email in the chat so you can actually send us an email about it. How many days will take process from independent auditor to CB and final decision release?
Um, Let me remember. It's a few. There is a defined. If there is a maximum time, I don't remember it right now, but let me double check for you. Totok, please feel free to write us an email at greenkey@fee.global so I can send you the response. I'm not sure right now. I can check. It's part of the new processes. So in the past, it was like maximum 4 weeks. In the new reality, it's actually less than that.
Perfect. Regarding the new accreditation mentioned earlier, could you please let us know where we can access the living document? Will you be able to share the link with us?
That is only possible if you're part of the certification process and a Green Key establishment or an establishment that is applying for Green Key. So once you are in the process of doing that, you will get access to that document.
Thank you. One question from Karim. Do audits need to be fully ready to meet mandatory criteria before opening an application with Green Key?
No, you don't need to be fully ready. You can open the application and you can get started, even if you are not fully ready. Of course, that's not going to be possible because the application form is there for you to also understand what is it that I have to submit for the different criteria. You can understand that with the catalog as well, but the application form is the online tool that should support you in this process. So in general, none of our criteria are none of our establishments are fully ready when they start the application. Of course, it's good that you are sure that the majority of the mandatory criteria are already implemented. Otherwise, it's just taking a long time for you to submit everything. So it's good if you do a little bit of a pre-assessment. Where are the pain points? Where do I need to focus a bit more? But in general, you don't have to be completely ready to start the process.
Perfect. I don't see other questions for now. We can give it a few moments maybe, and then if everything is solved, we can.
Yes, if there is any questions that pop up in your head afterwards, if you are interested to learn a bit more about the process, please write us an email. Martina has dropped our email address in the chat. It's greencat.fee.global. So anything that you haven't said now, you can also ask afterwards.
Okay, Marta is asking us how can I apply for being an external auditor of Green Key?
There is a page on our website where the process is explained. Martina, maybe you can drop that
Yes.
as well. And in the meantime, I can take the next question, which is whether this session will be sent to attendees. Yes, there is actually already a recording of a previous session on our website. So you can always look at the presentation already now, basically. And Martina is also dropping the link to that page.
Yes, here it is.
Thank you. All right. Then, if we don't have any other questions, I can release you 5 minutes ahead of time. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. I hope it was useful and you could take something out of it. Otherwise, as I said, you're welcome to write us an email as well. And I wish you a great rest of the day or afternoon. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.